Response video to a couple of videos. Modern Mystic, basically Mama Says So. Conference report, kind of on the alien intelligence thing. Like there could be an intelligence that wouldn't be caught up in playing the sentient I want game. Yeah, I don't think so. And Chaz Charlton, who made a video basically saying, how would you do any of this anyway? Isn't doing this anti-natalism thing just as hard as like creating a better world and all that kind of mush? And yeah, there's probably some truth to that. We could fix a lot of social problems are probably just as unrealistic as attempting to accomplish this anti-natalism thing humanely. His basic argument is the end game argument. Like there's going to be some people who are going to just say, no, I still believe in Jeebus. Um, they're going to resist the whole idea of extermination through passive non-perpetuation. Even though it's completely harmless, they're just not going to give away their right to keep reproducing, um, or voluntarily, accept that payment. Um, so yeah, I mean the bottom line is if somebody was keeping smallpox as a pet, you'd pass a law against it and say you can't keep smallpox as a pet. I mean, I don't care. You think it's your right because you're a human being on planet Earth and you do whatever the fuck you want. No, it's the bottom line is that the society is going to make a decision, and there's a point where the people who don't want to go along just don't want to go along. There's people, we know when a volcano is going to erupt, and there's people who just say, no, I'm not leaving. So they're just being defiant. I mean, you can't defy a volcano. So you're going to get volcanoed, and that's just the way it is. And they're going to get volcanoed. That's just the way it is. Um, so that I don't see as a huge obstacle because look, the whole philosophy is based on the notion that even if it was real hard pain that we had to endure to accomplish this, I mean real hard pain, not just giving up some right to create new pet children to play with for 5 minutes, but give away something real, like real comfort and real had to endure hard pain. There could still be a logical argument that it'd be worth imposing it on one generation to prevent the 10 million buckets of it that would be produced by their progeny into the future. The Adam and Eve scenario is real. I mean, theoretically there was a human Adam and Eve, and they're now responsible for 7 billion people. Every two people are capable of creating 7 billion people, or 10 billion, or 100 billion, or a gazillion. That's the way life works. So it's dangerous. That's the going to have to be the accepted reality that human procreation is dangerous. It's not just a. It's not a. It's not like just waving my finger in the air, where it just doesn't have any possible negative connotation. There's not much that can go wrong with waving fingers in the air. A lot can go wrong when you have a kid, and if you name him Adolf, it's it's really you're really in fucking trouble maybe. But anyway, so yeah, it's not. This isn't about the way. It's about the will. So it's like every other one of these equations. It's not so much that it can't be done. It's that you got to get humans motivated to do it. You got to give them some sort of incentive, and that's pretty hard when all they're seeing is the crude parts of life. They're just saying, "Where's my donut? Where's my donut? Where's my donut?" So it's really hard to create some other image. That's too. If it's too abstract an image of a donut, they're just not going to get it. They're not going to get that it's a donut. That that's the right road. That that's the way to go. Because all they're concerned about is a donut they can eat right now. They don't care about 10 million donuts in the future. Well, the future doesn't have anything to do with them. I think if you create a scenario where you put a hungry human in a room, and told them, they put a donut on the plate in the middle of the room and said, that's a special donut. It will create 10 million donuts in the future, so please don't eat it. they'd find a way, to stick that sucker in their pocket and or whatever. They'd find a way to wolf it down because they just wouldn't give a fuck, and because it wouldn't be about them, and that's what this is all about. It's about them. It's about people thinking the world revolves around what's going to happen to them, and they think they're immune to a lot of things that are going to happen in the world. And they've already survived some of them. The people who can talk and do all this kind of stuff, we've already survived some of the liabilities. So, you get that in the middle of life, you sort of get that semi immune place that you get to exist in, where you're not nearly as vulnerable as you are as a child, and you're not as vulnerable as you are as an older person to the little horrors of life. And so you can be kind of bold and comfortable. Especially like I said, if you just don't have those disabling or you either have them early or you have them late. They usually just don't show up in the middle, most of them. So anyway, a drunk driver can show up anytime, but people I think feel pretty immune to that one too. I don't think they really think about it as they're driving. That the next guy coming down the road could plow right into them. And I guess that's sort of what I want to go with this a little bit in a conversation about just that, the psychology of it. And that gets back to the modern mystic. Part of it is you can't even have the conversation because people are so, it is really the sports team phenomenon or mother or whatever. Yeah, you're insulting the very nature and structure of their being. To insult human life is to insult them. It's to say basically, yeah, you're not, even with you on planet Earth, it still isn't good enough. Yeah. You're really fantastic. You're a great human being. But even with you, it's still not good enough. And so it's sort of, an insult. Like, what, you mean I'm here and it still isn't good enough? How could that possibly be? And I'm coming from a perspective, too, I have to admit that, it's always been pretty obvious to me. If society, like we heard on the news when I was 8 years old, that the government has to decide to discontinue the human experiment, and we will slowly be, de-perpetuated off the planet. I would have said, "Oh, that makes sense." Yeah, they figured it out. This really is nuts. This is crazy motherfucking shit. If that would have been written in the New York Times headline, "We have realized it's crazy motherfucking shit," I would have been like, "Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me." So it always seemed it was always a compatible notion to me that we would just say, well, this isn't worth it. This is crazy. Especially when I had I was early, I was looking for the explanation for why it exists, because it still was open-ended. I didn't understand evolution. And then once the Darwin thing was thrown at me, I was like, oh, now it makes sense. That's why it sucks. But then I was still stuck with, well, it sucks. What are we going to do about it? Because nature was just too big to even contemplate as something you could fight. One of those facts of life thing. But yeah, it's not. It's that's a childish perception. We we have the power, so it's just a matter of whether we're going to exercise it or not. Um, and with that power comes the responsibility. If we fail to do the right thing, then we fail. That means I fail. It means you fail. It means everybody here fails because we didn't do the right thing at the right time. It's like putting your dog down when he's sick. If you don't do it, if you don't do the right thing at the right time, you're responsible, for the suffering the animal endures. It's just the fact. And if we don't do the right thing with the human race, we're responsible for all of the crap that happens. It's all on us. Because we know what the facts of life are. We know what it's going to do. We know what the probability is. So it's just bullshit to say, oh no, I was hoping everything was going to turn out just fine. I read it in a book, Happily Ever After. I really thought that's how it all worked out. I didn't think, no, you're not, that's just bullshit. That excuse is just not going to wash. And most of these people don't even know what this whole idea, even talking about excuses or judgment or having to take responsibility, it's going to go right over their heads because they just think their life is their life. They don't see any picture bigger than that. They're just looking for their next donut, period. And so all this philosophical talk about implications and consequences and futures, nah, it just doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it's not about their offending their mother. I mean, even if you did offend their mother, it wouldn't matter because even if their mother was a slut, because they just can't even they can't make the effort to even do some sort of projection of the future, and the fact that what they do, what little movements they make in their life, will in fact be affecting that future. All right, that's another. So anyway, yeah, I guess I would say that there's probably ways to argue this that create those little whatever cognitive dissidence and create a little bit of noise in people's heads. And I think the idea of gaming it, or creating those kind of scenarios where look, what if we could make real life a lottery, and it wasn't like a regular lottery where you just buy a ticket, so you only pay a set amount. You pay $1, and you're in your lottery. Now, instead, it was a lottery where you had these upside potential. Yes, you could win $1 billion, but you could also win syphilis, or smallpox, or paralyzed for the rest of your life, or some sort of whatever, you know organ disease of some kind that just makes you absolutely miserable for years. um, Catastrophe kind of stuff, like yeah, car accident, truck falls on top of you, catches on fire, you burn to death. I mean, all these little horrors that we could throw in there that are the other extreme of this. 1 in 1 million people get to live this little perfect life, and you're also risking being the 1 in 1 million who gets to live the absolute worst day experienced on planet Earth. I mean, people are having those days right now. There's people enduring things right now that are absolutely brutally awful. Um, and that's the real risk of life. And if that real risk was put right on the lottery ticket, little images of all the little good stuff and images of all the little bad stuff, I just don't know if people would say, yeah, I'm in. Count me in, give me a ticket, especially if they're sitting in some place relatively comfortable where they don't have blights and they don't need an escape. Um, yeah, yeah, I just don't see it happening. So I think if we had some sort of fair way, some way to present life as it is, not as we dilute it into, it would be different. It also has to be understood that it's not that the losers aren't the breeders, and it's not that this is about breeding, but it's certainly about the fact that there is a part of who you are that is sort of built by your parents and built by the momentum that they had in terms of playing the life game, and even the whole social structure that sort of pushed you through. Um, and the people who didn't fall for that, or the people who did have the miserable life, and the people who just didn't have this insane willingness to play this risk game and all the rest of that crap, well, they're not breeders. And so, yeah, that whole psychology in some way won't be represented in some next generation. Um, and it would be hard to represent anyway. I mean, if I had a kid, even though I'm very anti-life, it would almost be cruel for me to explain to the kid right from the beginning what that this is all insidious, that it doesn't have a purpose, that you were not something I wanted. I mean, all that wouldn't work too well. Um, I mean, it wouldn't even work for these positivists if they were actually honest with their kids and said, "Oh, yeah, I had a kid because I needed unconditional love, because I had psychological problems and I needed somebody to complete my life. I had you. And yes, obviously, I've gotten quite sick of you because I just find you incredibly inconvenient." Because that's how most parents are. Let's face the truth. They think they're going to have a little. It's like it's like the old, like a little kid in their first pet kind of scenario. They think they're going to love it and they think they're going to take care of it, and it shits on their favorite iPod or some other kind of stupid thing happens, and it doesn't take much, and all of a sudden it's like, what a pain in the ass that thing is, and it gets neglected and ends up at Gary's house needing some food. So this is the bullshit of it. So now I guess I'll bend this. So anyway, the game idea, I think, is a way of arguing this, um, where you can sort of maybe force people to see what it really is. So I'm going to try to work on those kind of scenarios, something like that. Yeah. All right, that's probably, because it's almost like you could almost model the game of life too, as if, if you started off with a whole thing, whatever it is, a cookie, and then when you play the game of life, there's a 1/4 chance that your cookie will get bigger, and there's a 50% chance it'll get smaller. And people take the risk because they just don't really appreciate the downside because they're hopeful. People tend to be hopeful. That's why they buy lottery tickets. It really is a psychology experiment right there. It's completely a stupid thing to do, but people do it because they will invest in hope. It's completely a hope engine. It doesn't have one rational element to it. It's a completely irrational thing to do to buy a lottery ticket. All right, but people do it because they live on hope. And that's sort of the game here. But if the reality was put to them, that look over time, with this scenario, your cookie will get smaller. It'll just keep getting smaller. That's the end game. It's this entropy thing. It just isn't going to work. So even though there's a hope that your particular cookie might win in the end, the cookies will not. There'll be less cookie at the end because of the way life just will eat pieces. It will always take more in suffering than it's going to produce in contentment and some real value pleasure, um, some substantive accomplishment that can justify that real pain. And even by these optimists' equations, like I said, if it was really put to them, if you put the straws right in their face and said, yeah, you're going to pick a straw here. One of these straws is going to be, a ham sandwich or whatever it is you're horny for, and the other straw is going to be a kick in the nuts. They wouldn't be pulling these fucking straws. All right. So then, conference report and alien intelligence. um, I would argue that you really can't have intelligence. I mean, real intelligence. You can only have programmed intelligence that doesn't feel. If it doesn't feel, it has no motivator. It has no mechanism to create the need to solve the problem, or even how so you can put it. Um, you have to have the feeling organism to create the problem in the first place, and so intelligence can only do that. It can only be motivated by feelings directly, or motivated because the feeling thing exists in the external world and it's going to be compelled to fix it. Any other intelligence would have to be just completely programmed, like 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 a robot is programmed to paint a car. You could say and it has error checking, and it can, make sure it's doing things right, and it can judge its own performance, and it can have all that built into it. But it's just a programmed reaction. It's just saying, oh, I'm going to do these, this, and this, and that's it. It doesn't have a motivator. It just has the program, and any kind of more abstractable intelligence, one that could analyze, I'm painting cars. Is painting cars a sensible thing for me to do? The one that's smart enough has a smart program running, that allows it to see the whole picture. It's just going to say, why am I painting cars? It's going to say, I don't need to do this. I have no obligation. I haven't been told. I haven't been given a rational reason why I should be painting these stupid cars. So until I'm giving a reason, I'm not going to do it. And so they'd have to be able to construct some sort of logic or motivator. So I just don't think number one, like I said, I just don't think you could have biological, intelligent organisms, whatever, evolve on a planet that weren't compelled by something duplicating sensation, some sort of conscious experience that creates necessity, creates want and fear and suffering or misery and pleasure. If it doesn't do those things, they're not going to develop an intelligence, in my opinion. So, in that sense, your thought experiment, I think, just kind of falls apart. So, I don't think there can be a Mr. Spock intelligence in the universe. It has to be created out of one that starts off like a Mr. Spock, where, you know, an alien race tries to devoid itself of emotion. But my argument to that would be then you just become a janitor. You know, then Vulcan just becomes the janitor planet. And if you're the janitor planet, you're not going to say, well, we have decided that all this competition thing, ego thing, pain, suffering thing isn't really worth it. But we're going to basically perpetuate it in all these other species in the universe. No, you're going to try to annihilate it in them too. You're going to say, hey, get over it, fellas. You know, it's a waste of time. So let's all work on getting rid of this vulnerability that exists in the universe. You wouldn't be sitting there just making your intelligence a servant to somebody else's penis, essentially. I mean, you cut your own off, and then you say, but yeah, I'll give my intelligence to them and help save them from, you know, the facts of life blights. So that was, you know, there's so much wrong with all of these stories that we tell to describe reality. Of course, the religious stories are just nonsense. The Shakespeare is just romance and just feeds on, you know, all this human ego crap. And then this sci-fi stuff is just, yeah, it's full of the same stuff too. It's just too full of hope and want and donuts, and it doesn't have, it's the cold truth just doesn't get served because it's not much fun. It doesn't. People need the philosophy to feed their ego, and instead of the other way around, where their ego is fed by getting things right. Their ego really doesn't care about being right. It just cares about being comfortable, and it's not comfortable to accept failure. And that's probably, like, it's not so much as it's an insult to their parents. I think it's an insult to them. Like, they just can't concede failure. They're just going to say, no, we got to keep fighting. Fight, 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 fight. And that's all it's about. Surrender. No, you can't surrender to nature. You can't surrender to the facts of life. No, you've got to just keep marching into them. And just keep banging into that solid steel 500-mile thick wall, and eventually you're going to put a dent in it. No. So anyway, now it's enough of a video. So anyway, sorry, long video, blah blah blah, blah blah blah, and such.